طيب shall we start بإذن تعالى؟ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I hope everything's working. I'm not sure it is. Okay. So, where it is here. I think so. I haven't done this before, so it's maybe a little bit of confusion at the beginning, but inshallah. So, طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all in this first session in what I can call the pre-Ajurumiyya classes. So we're not studying the Ajurumiyya itself, but we are studying a few classes that will equip you with some knowledge that is necessary for you, which I think if you delve into Al-Ajurumiyya without having this in your mind, especially as non-Arabic native speakers, you will struggle and you will be confused. And the last thing you want studying Arabic is to have this impression that grammar is difficult or Arabic Nahu is difficult, and it is not difficult. It's very, very, very easy. You know, Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala used to say, studying Nahu or Nahu is like a house that is made out of hay, but the door is made of iron. If you go through the door, everything else is easy after that. You know, so in Nahu and in specifically in Al-Ajurumiyya, there are the first 4 to 5 sections or chapters, which are short sections. If you master them, you will be fine with Nahu. If you don't, when you progress later on, you will be so confused. You know, you'll be thinking that this Nahu is something that is so difficult to grasp. So it's very important for you, number one, to have the impression that Nahu is easy. Number two, for you to focus on the first 5 sections or 5 chapters of the 5 topics. And once you have them, anything that can be thrown at you, you will be able to understand it. I will be more structured and more systematic in Al-Ajurumiyya itself. Here, we will just develop. I'm not going to be following any material. I will be progressing as we see fit. And then when I think that I have given you all the basic elements, we will begin the Ajurumiyya itself. Okay, so there will be a lot of note taking that you have to do, and I'm glad that we are able to record these sessions, so you can go through the video again. I'm going to be using the pen and the board to illustrate and write a few things. So if you don't catch up with me, you can always go back to the video, inshallah. I won't be fast, inshallah. But to begin with, I want you to understand, like I said, that the Arabic language is one of the easiest language to understand and to grasp compared to all other languages, even though it is the richest language. The richest language is the Arabic language. But subhanAllah, the way you see consistency in the language, it will amaze you. You know, people just spoke the language, and when you look at the way they spoke things, it has rules to it. Even though they haven't sat down together and decided that let's have this rule or that rule, they just happen to develop a language that has a system to it, you know. And the scholars of Islam, just as they were keen to collect the Quran and to make sure that they write the Quran. Initially, the Quran was in the chest of the Sahaba. They memorized it, right? But a time came where a lot of the Sahaba died as martyrs, and a lot of confusion happened, especially when it comes to the riwayat and the qira'at. People, subhanAllah, they would hear one qira'ah and they would be confused about it. So Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anh, the leader of the believers at the time, he decided that it is time to write a reference version of the Quran, and he wrote the Quran. Similar efforts or endeavors were taken also to record the hadith. So the hadith initially was not written until a time came where the hadith was being fabricated, and people started to forcefully concoct a hadith that wasn't said by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala subjugated to this ummah ulama who will make sure that they will document all the authentic hadith, and not only the authentic hadith, but also every bit of hadith that was said at the time of the Prophet. And in the following 200 years, they wrote this down, and they compiled books, and they wrote biographies about the narrators and who is reliable and who is not reliable. They went to extensive length to make sure that they preserve the hadith for us. So they preserved the Quran, and they also preserved the hadith. And then after that, they realized when the Islamic State expanded and some non-Muslim nations came into Islam and they started to mix with them, as you would expect from any language, the language started to evolve, and they started to dilute. So some of the non-Arabic words came into the Arabic language, and the Arabic people, they started to speak a language that wasn't consistent with the language spoken at the time of the revelation. So the ulama, they decided that if one was to understand the Quran, the reason why we preserve the Quran, if the language of the Quran is lost, then we have lost the Quran itself, right? So some giant legendary scholars, subhanAllah, they went out of their way to make sure that they will record the language. They wrote all the poetries that were said around that time, and they spoke to the Arabs, and they wrote extensive documentations just to write down how people spoke at the time. After that, after they documented, they went through a phase of documentation. After they documented it, to make it accessible and understandable by other people who are seeking to learn the language, they have to see the system in which this language works. So they decided to look, why do the Arabs say statements or sentences in this structure and not in that structure? What is consistent between these structures? So they developed rules. They say, this is the rule. This is how, if you want to learn the language fast, the rule is when a verb happens to be in a sentence, there has to be a subject after that immediately, or there has to be a subject of some sort. So they developed rules like this, and therefore the ulama, they said, it evolves all the way to us. And they made it such that to study Nahu, there are 3 phases to understand in Nahu. Number 1, to understand that there are categorizations. So they looked at all the words that they have documented, and they categorized them. So within a sentence, words are categorized. So for you to understand the role of any one word and how you should say it, you have to understand under what category does it fall. And then you also need to have the definition of that category. For you to be able to say this word falls under this category, you need to understand what's the definition of words that fall under this category. So there are categorizations. And the second thing, there are definitions for every categorization. And then finally, once you know that a particular word falls under a certain category, what happens? You need to know what's the ruling. Then what happens to this word? How do we do it? How do we pronounce it? Right? So Nahu, in basic terms, the ulama of Nahu, they made it boil down to this: 3 things: categorization, definitions, and then rulings. What do we do with this particular word when it comes in this particular context? How do we pronounce it? Right? The Arabic language, like I said to you, the good news of it is that there are few exceptions. There was always like exceptions to rules, but subhanallah, they are so few in the Arabic language. Even the ulama, they will try their best. The ulama, when I say the ulama in this context, I'm referring to the ulama of Nahu. And the ulama, they try to make rules so that they can say there is no exceptions to it. Why? Because your brain will be more comfortable accepting a rule if you know that it is true throughout. If you know that there's this rule and there are 7 exceptions to it, and there's that rule and there's 6 exceptions to it, and there's that rule and there's your brain will just be tired of it. So what they did, they tried to be they tried to introduce as little exceptions as possible. Right? And the language helps. The language itself, it did help this approach. So you will find that there will be little times where we will say to you the rule is such and such, but there are exception words. Very little of that, but it does exist. طيب. One important aspect of Nahu is what the ulama call i'rab. I'rab. طيب. Or before I even get to that, Nahu is a word that means style or direction. طيب. And it comes from a statement that was said by Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. It is said that in the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, the language of Muslims started to mix with the language of non-Muslims, non-Arabs, sorry. The language of the Arabs started to mix with the language of non-Arabs. And then the Arabs themselves started to deviate away from how the language was spoken at the time. And then a man by the name of Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. This man, who was very popular, very known, very honorable. One time, he was speaking to his daughter. And it was said, the narration said that she looked at towards the heaven, the sky, and she said to her father something that resembles the English statement, how beautiful is the heaven? How beautiful is the heaven? So this is a statement of, is it a question or is it a rhetorical question, just to emphasize the beauty of the sky? Which of the two is it? It begins by how, right? It begins by how, and you will be forgiven to think that a statement that begins with how is a question, right? In Arabic, she said, "Ma ajmalu as-sama, ma ajmalu as-sama." She said, "Ma ajmalu." Look at this tone at the end of ajmalu. This means she's asking a question. She said, "What is the most beautiful in the heavens?" So the father answered and said, "The stars. The most beautiful thing in the heavens are the stars." Because she said, what? Ma ajmalu. She said, Ma an hada sa'altuka ya abi. She said, I did not ask about it. I was just telling you, I was making a statement, not a question. I was telling you how beautiful is the heaven. He said to her, Ya bunayyati iftahi faki. He said, oh my daughter, open your mouth. Don't say ajmalu, say ajmala. So, ma ajmala as-sama. How beautiful is the heaven. And what was the difference? One haraka. One tiny haraka. Should you say ma ajmalu as-sama or ma ajmal as-sama? That made a huge difference in the sentence. Is it a question asking what is the most beautiful item in the heaven, or is it a rhetorical question only for the purpose of emphasizing how beautiful is the heaven? Right? And that was indicated by what? By a simple haraka. So this haraka at the end makes a huge difference in understanding. So if you were to understand the Quran, you need to make sure that you pay good attention as to what is being said there. A lot of the deeper insights can be derived from your understanding of the grammatical structures. And like I said previously, if you're not in that level, even scholars who have that deep insight, they will not bother telling you about these insights because you will just not understand it. You will just not get it. You're not equipped with the knowledge of Nahu that such idea can be presented to you. It will not be fathomable to you. All right. So for you to understand the Nahu and then for them to tell you, look at this haraka and this haraka means this, or that haraka means that, for you need to be in that level for them to speak to you like this. Until then, they will only give you what? The superficial knowledge. And that's why studying Nahu is really, really important. طيب, in the Quran, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ وَرَسُولُهُ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ, verily Allah is free from, it has nothing to do with the polytheists. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَرِيءٌ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, from the polytheists. طيب, وَرَسُولُهُ or وَرَسُولَهُ. If you say وَرَسُولُهُ, means Allah and His Messenger are free from the polytheists. طيب, but if you say وَرَسُولَهُ rather than luh, وَرَسُولُهُ, it means that Allah is free from the polytheist and is also free from His Messenger. Meaning putting the Messenger of Allah and the polytheist in the same category. And what's the difference there? Are you going to say Rasuluh or are you going to say Rasulullah? That is going to make the difference. Right? So this is what Nahu is all about. So they say Nahu is about i'rab, i'rabul kalam. I'rabul kalam, subhanallah, I jumped one idea. So I told you the story of this Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali and how he had that conversation with his daughter. And when he noticed that his own daughter, who is an eloquent Arabic speaker, she started to mix up the language. So he went to Ali radiallahu anhu. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, adrik al-nas. He says, oh leader of the believers, come to the rescue for people. The language is on its way. The language of the Quran is on its way. So Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he took a piece of paper and some pen, and he wrote few rules. He began, and then rules of grammar to understand the language. And he gave it to Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, to this man, and he said to him, Unhu nahwa hada. Unhu nahwa hada, meaning write along the style of this. So Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali continued on the same pattern and devised rules of grammar. All right? And this is where the word nahu comes from. Nahu, it doesn't actually mean grammar. It doesn't mean grammar. It means in the direction of this, or in the style of this. All right? But this is the word that was used by Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and that's why the entire field of knowledge of Nahu was initiated. So for the ulama, to preserve this idea, to preserve this history, they preserve the word Nahu. They preserve the word Nahu, so they call it Nahu. However, sometimes you might find that this field of knowledge is called al-Qawa'id, Qawa'id al-Lugha al-Arabiyya. Same thing, the rules that govern the Arabic language. But this way, you understand that these are the rules, but with the word Nahu, it conveys more the history, how these Qawa'id were derived. Right? But essentially, Nahu and Qawa'id, the same thing. But more often than not, you'll find the word Nahu is used rather than Qawa'id. طيب. So now we move on to the word al-i'rab. Al-i'rab means to make something sound clear. Al-i'rab, and these are technical words. I am presenting them to you now because when we get to the Nahu in al-Ajrumiyya, I will be mentioning these words so casually, and I will just pass through them. So right now, I want you to write these words and practice them. Al-i'rab, al-i'rab. Al-i'rab, for example, now is what? Al-i'rab is to beautify something by making it clear, and to make it sound clear and understandable, right? And that's why the Arabs are called Arab, or they call themselves Arab, because they pride themselves in their ability to articulate things very, very, very well. And they think that they are the best in this, and that's why they call anyone who is non-Arab, they call them Ajam. Ajam means somebody, Ajam is a word that Arabs give to animals. So the animal that is unable to articulate, unable to speak at all. So they think other nations compared to them are like animals who are unable to speak at all, compared to their eloquency, to their ability to express ideas and, with this level of articulation. So basically an Arab or being Arab means somebody who is able to articulate clearly ideas and convey ideas so clearly. Al-i'rab, so al-i'rab comes from the word Arab. Right? Al-i'rab means to make your statements clear so that the intended meaning is conveyed. Al-i'rab means to make your statements clear, or to construct your statements clear, such that whoever listens to you understands you in the correct way, rather than confusing whatever you said to another meaning that you never intended. So that's what i'rab is. So to speak in a way that is clear and understood, this is basically i'rab. How do you do this? How do you do this? By following the rules of grammar. You know, by following the rule. If your intention is to say that, let me take you this example. This is gonna work without any complications. طيب. So the reason why I said that this level is not for somebody who is so much of a beginner that they can't read and write. You know, for you to be in this class, for you to be able to study this, you need to be able to at least read the Arabic scripture, the Arabic writing. And it would be good if you had some exposure. So one of the best things that you could study before you get into Al-Ajurumiyya is to study Al-Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk. Right? But what I'm doing in these set of classes is to equip even those who haven't studied Al-Arabiyya Bayna Yadayk to be able to jump into Al-Ajurumiyya. All right. So for example, look, this sentence here. Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. طيب. ضرب المعلم. Can you all read this? Is it clear? Yeah. So ضرب means to hit. Okay. المعلم means the teacher. محمدا means Muhammad, basically. All right. 3 words. Now, ضرب is a verb. You know, who is the doer of that verb? المعلم. المعلم. How do we indicate this? Yeah. Look. So when you look at this, can you see this dhamma here? This dhamma is indicating that the one that did the hitting was al-muallim, the teacher. And this fatha here, this fatha indicates that the one being hit was Muhammad. All right. But the Arabic language, just like we're saying in English, the teacher hit Muhammad. Right? If you want to swap things, if you want to say Muhammad is the one who hit the teacher, right? All you have to do is, without changing the order of things, you can keep it the way it is. ضرب, you say. You say ضرب المعلم محمد. So we have fatha here and dhamma here. Did we change anything? So before it was daraba al-muallimu Muhammadan. Yeah? Now it is daraba al-muallima Muhammadun. Now, with this slight difference, this sentence means the one who did the hitting was Muhammad, and the one being hit is al-muallim. The teacher was being hit. Right? What changed there is the ending part of the sentence, the ending part of the word. How the short vowels that we had on al-muallim, when it was dhamma, it was the subject, it was the fa'il. And when we changed it to fatha, it became the object, the one the action was done onto. And Muhammadan, Muhammad here, now that it has dhamma, it is the fa'il, the subject. But if we change it to how it was before, it was the one that's being hit. So what happened there? The understanding differed or did not differ? It differed. Based on what? Based on how you change the ending part of the word. Okay? There's a lot of this in the Quran. Okay? A lot of this in the Quran where things can be confused. Okay? The original order of sentence is the verb, and then the subject, and then the object. That's the way naturally a sentence would develop. But the Arabs sometimes, for some articulation reasons, for some balagha reasons, eloquency reasons, they would change the order of things. So rather than saying Ahmed ate the apple, that means what? Ahmed ate an apple, right? But it doesn't say anything about whether or not Ahmed ate anything else, right? But if we say it was the apple that Ahmed ate, what does that mean? Ahmed only ate the apple. The banana was not eaten by Ahmed. Somebody else ate the banana. Right? How was that conveyed? By the change of order. So it was the apple that Ahmed ate. Similar to that, in Arabic, we can say the same thing. Right? We can change the order of things to convey another subtle meaning. Right? For example, if we say ضرب المعلم محمدا, right? What we're saying here is the teacher hit Muhammad, simple as. But if we change the sentence and we say ضرب محمدا المعلم, so we are emphasizing that the one who hit Muhammad, we're not concerned about Sa'id being hit and who hit him or not. We're not emphasizing about Fatima being hit and who hit her. We don't care about these things. Muhammad is more important to us. So we are saying that we brought Muhammad first and say ضرب محمدا المعلم. So we change the order, and again we convey the subtle meaning. So this natural order whereby the first thing is the fi'l, the verb, and then the second that comes after it is the subject, right? And then the third is the object. It's not always the case. The Arabs would change things around, but then when they change things around, you're going to get confused. You will not know where's the subject, where's the object. How do you know? By the haraka, the end part of it. So basically, Nahu is all about understanding the science that you would put at the end of words so that you recognize the role each word is playing within a sentence. Is this word being a subject here, or is it being an object, or is it something else? That's all dependent on what? On the haraka that you put at the end of the word. Is that making sense? Yeah. Please feel free to ask, So this is what we are studying. Nahu has a supplementary field of knowledge that is called sarf. Right? Sarf basically is studying every haraka and every letter and every haraka within a word. Right? So we studied the different formulations, how one word can be formulated in different ways, and what haraka it could have in all the different possible ways, and then the impact of that in meaning. So that was sarf. So sarf basically is studying this particular example. Look, if you look at this sentence here, sarf is studying this word by itself. Okay. Now, is it daraba or is it duriba? or is it darbun, or is it darban, or darraba? All these different formulations, they will have another connotation to the meaning of the original word. And that is called what? That's called sarf. So is it daraba, or is it duriba, or is it darbun? All these differences, they the same meaning. The meaning of hitting is there, but is it passive tense? Is it active tense? Is it a noun, or is it a fi'l? Is it past tense, or is it a command, fi'l amr? All this will be studied within what? Within sarf, right? But sarf is more complex to understand than nahu. And because of this, the ulama, they are of the opinion that even though logically it makes more sense for you to study the part before you study the whole. Okay? Logically, before you study the structure of one sentence, it makes sense for you to study the parts that make that structure. However, because studying sarf is more complicated, it is better to train the person through studying nahu, and when they are in that level, they will introduce sarf at a later stage. Almost all the scholars are on agreement about this. Al-Alfiyya, for example, Alfiyya ibn Malik, one of the most advanced books of nahu, you'll find that it presents to you nahu at the beginning, but in the later chapters, it will begin to introduce sarf later on. And in my opinion, I think the only reason why you would want to learn sarf as a non-Arabic speaker is because you would want to know how to create certain variations of a word. For example, when a word means a past tense, how do you create the present tense out of it? How do you create the command version of it? How we have the past participle out of it, and so on and so forth. These variations, how to create them. I would say there are two ways of doing this: either by studying sarf, okay, which is, I think, the more complicated way, or by getting exposure to the language. You get exposed to the language, the more exposure you have, you read more, you listen more, you have more examples for the sentences, and with that, inshallah, you will be able to deduce. For example, if you studied, for example, that daraba means to hit, right? But it is an active tense. Active tense means the subject will be mentioned. Daraba Muhammadun al-muallima مثلا. Muhammad hit the teacher. But if you don't want to mention the subject, you could say duriba. So rather than daraba, you will say duriba. So now you can build from this, right, by saying akala and ukila. Akala wa ukila. Sharaba wa shuriba. Qara'a wa quri'a. Kataba wa kutiba. Now you can have two ways: either understand the rule, what is the rule that governs this, or get the hang of it by exposure. I believe that rather than congesting your mind when you are at the beginning of the journey by rules here, rules there, rules here, rules there, I think more exposure will just get you the hang of it. And only when you get to the advanced studies of this, only then you can study rules with regards to sarf. Right? But as the ulama suggested, it's always good to begin by studying nahu. So we said nahu is what? Nahu is that science, is that field of knowledge that helps you determine and study the ending part of words. So for this word here, let's remove this. What are we concerned with when it comes to this word here? What are we concerned with? Are we concerned with the dad? Are we concerned with the dad? No. Dad will be concerned if you're studying sarf. Are we concerned by the ra? No. Ra would be our concern if we are studying sarf. But now that we are studying nahu, our concern is this part here. Only this part. Only that last letter. What haraka does it have? Is it fatha? Is it dhamma? Or is it kasra? And what's the impact of that? So this is what we study with nahu. And also we study what are the rules that govern what haraka we should give to each word. There are rules. So we're going to study the rules that helps us determine what haraka we should give to the last letter in a word. right? The same thing with al-muallimu. Al-muallimu, we don't care about the alif, the lam, the meme, the ayn, the lam, these letters and their respective vowels or harakat are of no concern to us when we're studying Nahw. What we are concerned with is just the meme, the last letter, the meme, and the haraka it comes with it. We want to know, was it fatha, was it dhamma, was it kasra? So if somebody's speaking to us, we want to be able to understand what he's saying by listening out for the last haraka in that word. And the same thing with Muhammad. Was it Muhammadun, or Muhammadan, was it Muhammadin? So when I'm speaking, I'm communicating ideas, I want to be able to say the right thing so I am not misunderstood. Like when I should be saying Muhammadan, I need to make sure I don't say Muhammadun, and when I'm supposed to say Muhammadin, I don't say Muhammadan. And when people are speaking to me, I need to watch out for the last part, so I make sure that I understand what they are talking about. So this is the basic thing about Nahu, is that you will be studying what? Who can tell us what are the 3 things we will be studying within Nahu?
The categories.
So categories, تقسيمات وتعريفات وأحكام. So categorization, definitions, and then rulings. So when it comes to categorization, we want to know this, for example, this word here, this word here, ضرب. We want to know what type of word is it? Is it a noun? Is it a harf? Is it a letter? Or is it a verb, fi'l? If it's a fi'l, what type of fi'l is it? Is it past tense, present tense, future tense? Is it a command sentence? Once we know under what category it falls, then we will know what to do with it. So the first thing that we need to be doing, so there will be something that we call grammatical analysis. That's al-i'rab. So we take one word and we try to analyze it. What is it? What is this word doing here? So the first thing you need to be looking at is under what category is it falling? Is it fi'l? What type of fi'l? Fi'l madi, fi'l mudari', fi'l amr. And then if that's the case, is it mabni? Is it mu'rab? What are all the possible scenarios for that particular category? And then when we have established under what category exactly it falls, then we will know what to do with it. Does it have fatha? Does it have dhamma? Does it have kasra? So having identified the category, and then we need to have the definition of the category. When we say subject, what is a subject? We define subject is a noun that has dhamma at the end of it, and it is the person or the entity that did the action. So that's the definition. We just defined what fa'il is, right? What fi'l is, what a verb is. We just define it. So we keep on defining, and then after that, we are able to recognize the word. Okay, that word fits this definition, and therefore it's under this category, and therefore I'm going to give it this ruling because of where it is, because of what role it's playing. That's what all Nahu is all about. Right? So what I'm going to be doing now in these classes, I will be introducing ideas to you. Remember the first 5 sections of Al-Ajrumiyyah in grammar in general, whether it's Al-Ajrumiyyah that we're studying or any other book, they are the most important. If you learn them properly, Nahu will be easy for you. Arabic will be easy for you. But the nature of Nahu is these things, they tend to be interlinked. So it's so difficult to study one concept without the involvement of other concepts. So what we do, we will just touch upon all of them, touch upon all of these concepts, so that when we talk about them, they're not alien to you. You've come across them before. But like I said, I will just touch upon them in these classes so that you have an idea of what this is. And the good news is, this will not be entirely different, new to you, because languages, they are the same. Just like how we discovered that in English, for example, we have a verbal sentence and a nominal sentence. In Arabic, it's the same. We have jumla ismiya and jumla fi'liya. We have a verbal sentence and a nominal sentence. A sentence that begins with a noun is a nominal sentence. A sentence that begins with a verb is a verbal sentence. Simple as. And the good news is also there's no other categorization. So whatever you're dealing with has to be one of the two. Has to be one of the two. If you have any variation, you are still limited to the two. But you need to understand, is there a change of order? Something is happening here, right? So the ideas that you are going to be presented within Nahu, they are not entirely new. You know, you speak a language, and I'm sure you've done some grammar, whether it's English, whether it is your own language. You've come across Nahu before. You come across grammar before. You can see how languages develop and how languages are structured. Similar ideas are used here. So that's why it is easy to learn. It's not going to be difficult. One important element for learning Nahu, however, is to make sure that you practice whatever you can, whatever you come across. Right? So for the purpose of these classes, what I would like you to do, I will keep on teaching you ways in such a way that you can go away and then construct examples in English and then use the dictionary to bring their Arabic counterparts. Right? So you can create the sentence. So I can give you one or two examples, but then it will be your homework to go away. Now you know how to construct a sentence like this. You go home and you create sentences of your own making. How do you do this? Just make the sentences in English and then convert them in Arabic. Right? Nahu is all about practice. And you practice in one of two ways. First, the first more natural way is to practice through writing. You know, your brain will lag behind when it comes to speaking. Right? But if you write, writing will be easier for you. But if you have written enough, speaking will come more naturally. So the idea of writing examples is really important. So make sure that you do that. I will give you an example now. So one thing that we need to learn, again, I'm going to say what I said before, this idea that sentences. So we established now that in Nahu, we are studying sentences. So if somebody tells you, give me the ruling of this word. What is the Nahu ruling of this word? What do you tell them? Huh? Nothing. There's no Nahu related ruling that I can give about this word. Why? Because in Nahu, we don't study words. We study sentences. What we do is we try to identify the role of each word within that sentence. Okay? So that's what you do. So if somebody gives you Muhammad, you tell them, this has no grammatical sense in Nahu. We don't study this. We don't analyze this. But if somebody tells you this, somebody tells you, ضرب المعلم محمدا, then that's a sentence. We can analyze this. We can study. We can work with this. All right. So with Nahu, what do? We study sentences. And also, you will see, inshallah, when it comes to Nahu, you will learn that sentences that are possible to analyze from a Nahu perspective is sentences that are meaningful sentences. And that means jumla mufida. A meaningful sentence is called jumla mufida. So maybe I should write this. Yeah. So what we study with Nahu is this. الجملة المفيدة. الجملة المفيدة. So we see الجملة المفيدة. So الجملة المفيدة, what is this in English? Is a excuse me, I'm writing. A meaningful sentence. If a sentence is meaningful, then we can study it. If somebody speaks gibberish, it's not one word, it's a collection of words, but it's meaningless. This is something we cannot. That has a meaning and that was spoken with an intention or was written with an intention. So because of that, is it clear? So because of that, that is something that we can study, right? So words are not our remit when it comes to studying Nahu. Sentences that are not meaningful are not within our remit. What is within our remit is sentences that are meaningful, that has purpose behind it, somebody that was said with an intention, and more that come when we study al-Ajrumiyya. Now, something amazing and very powerful, despite of being a simple idea, but very powerful idea. You know what we just said now? Sentences are one of two, either nominal sentences or verbal sentences. Okay? But due to, we said that a nominal sentence is a sentence that begins with what? A noun. And a verbal sentence is a sentence that begins with a verb, right? If you have a sentence that doesn't begin with either a noun or a verb, what do you do then? Huh? Yeah, it could be gibberish, but if it's not gibberish, if it's meaningful, but it doesn't begin with either a word, a noun, or a verb. Huh? A command is a verb. If it doesn't, like for example, look at this sentence, for example. Watch it, brother. طيب من المسجد من المسجد أتيت. نعم. So من المسجد أتيت. So this is a sentence. Now it begins with min, and min, as you will see shortly, inshallah, is neither a noun nor a verb. But we said that sentences are either nominal sentences or verbal sentences. And I'm looking at this now. What is this? Right? So what do? You assume, you be confident that it has to be either this or that. Right? And then you assume that there must be some change of order, or there must be some form of omission. Right? But definitely, ultimately, I will be dealing with none other than verbal sentences or nominal sentences. Right? No confusion. Simple as that. Right? Because when it comes to grammatical analysis, when it comes to doing i'rab, what you need to do is you need to analyze the role each word plays within a sentence. Let me say that one more time. When you look at sentences, you want to do the i'rab, the grammatical analysis, you will be looking into what role each word is playing within a sentence. But then the role words play within a sentence differs, isn't it? If we're talking about a verb, what are we looking at for? Fi'l, verb, subject, and object, right? And if we are, so when we know that we are dealing with a verbal sentence, what will we have in mind? I'm going to look out for verb, and I'm going to be looking out for subject, and I'll be looking out for object, right? Whereas if I'm looking at a nominal sentence, I will not be looking at these three things. So immediately, the minute you are able to categorize the sentence to begin with, what type of sentence it is, immediately you have eliminated so many possibilities, and you've limited yourself to a subset of what is possible. A nominal sentence, for example, doesn't have verb, subject, and object. You know, it has what's called mubtada and khabar, and therefore you will be looking out for mubtada and khabar. Right? So basically, this idea that every sentence you deal with, it has to be one of two things, and that is either a nominal sentence or a verbal sentence. And it is very helpful because it sets you in the right mindset. What am I looking out for? If it's verbal, then I'm looking for fi'l, a verb, fa'il, subject, and maf'ul bihi, if at all, maf'ul bihi, the object. Right? If I'm dealing with a nominal sentence, a sentence that begins with a noun, then I'm looking out for al-mubtada and al-khabar. Does that make sense? So in Nahu, what do we study? We study meaningful sentences. And then from there, we know that any meaningful sentence, it has to be one of two things. and they're called al-jumlatu. Let me. طيب الجملة المفيدة. طيب, so الجملة المفيدة, we said this is what we study, right? الجملة المفيدة, a meaningful sentence. This can be one of two categories. You know, the first category here is a الجملة الاسمية والجملة الفعلية. طيب, is this clear to you guys? الجملة اسمية الجملة الفعلية. طيب, الجملة الاسمية or الجملة, this is what they call the nominal sentence, okay? And this is the verbal sentence. So we have verbal sentence. So this is verbal sentence, okay? And this is nominal sentence. And you're all familiar with these words, huh? Nominal and verbal sentences. Okay? So in today's class, what I will do, inshallah, huh? الفعل فعلية.
Sheikh, could you just zoom out on the screen, please? I can't see it fully.
Zoom out on what screen?
The screen that you're running, I can't see it fully.
You can't see this?
I can see it, but I can't see the whole diagram.
What can you hear now? How's that? Any better? My brother, can you see?
Yeah, I can see, I can't see your right, all of the writing on the screen.
Which one's a live Zoom?
That's the Zoom.
It's fine now. I've turned the screen around on my side.
Okay. So basically, this is the what we will study now. Now that we know that the sentences are going to be basically two sentences, you will need to understand that later on, sentences will be complicated. So at first, we will study the most basic form of sentences. For example, the teacher hit the boy. Right? And you can complicate this by saying the teacher hit the boy who ran with the scooter. Now another complication is being added to it. So that complex way of structures, we will leave it for later. We will now understand the basic forms of what is a normal sentence and what is a verbal sentence. And then when we master that, we will move to the more complex one. But Arabs, in particular in the Quran, you will never find sentences in these basic forms, the verb, subject, and object. It will be more complex, but this complexity can be easily dissected, can be broken down easily, very, very easily, right? If you understand things to be boiling down to one of these two things. Now, for the purpose of this class, in today's class, al-jumla al-ismiya, right? So I would expect you to learn these terms. Al-jumla al-ismiya, that's the nominal sentence. Al-jumla al-fi'liya, that's verbal sentences, right? Pick up on these languages because eventually, inshallah, what we are aiming to do, we're aiming to speak the Arabic language. Right? So when you learn the vocabulary, of the language. The one that you need to learn the most is what the vocabulary of that field itself. You know, the nahu. You know, when you are I don't know, if you are a taxi driver, right? Even if your English language is not so good, but you have to be good with everything to do with driving. You know how to call the different parts that are related to driving. If you are a chef, you will need to know how to call that. This is a pan, this is a sauce, this is whatever they call it. Right? So the vocabulary relating to your field of knowledge has to be the first vocabulary you learn. Right? So you might not learn what is the Arabic word for cushions. That will come later. But first, learn the Arabic words related to the field of knowledge that you're studying. All right. So now when you learn these words, I want you to see that you are collecting vocabulary. What is al-jumla? Al-jumla means a sentence. Al-ismiya means the nominal sentence. Al-jumlatul fi'liya, the verbal sentence. So be keen to collect these words as you go along, because that's going to increase your vocabulary as you go along. Right? Al-jumlatul ismiya. So I'm going to take you to an example of al-jumlatu al-ismiya. Al-jumlatu al-ismiya is something like look at this. And again, I'm going to write something, and your homework will be to go away and write further examples by writing examples in English and then translating them into Arabic by going to the dictionary. So if you want to, let me give you the example first. So the first example I'll give you here now is, look, so look, al-kitabu mufid. Can you all see this word?
Yeah.
Al-kitabu mufidun. See, my brother? Yani, when you learn how to read, then this will be perfectly suitable for you, inshallah. So al-kitab in English, this means the book. The book, right? Mufidun means beneficial. Okay, beneficial. All right. The book. Look at how this translates. The book. In the translation, you'll be seeing the book is. So in the translation, you have now 3 words. You know, whereas originally you had in Arabic 2 words. So in the translation, what got added? The word is. In Arabic, you don't need the word is. You just say al-kitabu mufidun. The book, like almost you are saying the book beneficial. But in the translation, you will have to say the book is beneficial for it to have sense in English, right? So al-kitabu mufidun. The book is beneficial. So the first part here, you will notice that the first part here is called in a nominal sentence. This is a nominal sentence. And you will see that this first part consists of 2 elements. Okay. I'm not going to add too much. See this element, this part here, and then this part here. Okay. The first part is called al-ta'rif. Al-ta'rif mean the article, the definite article. So basically it defines it. And very soon we'll be speaking about definite words and indefinite words. Right? This is a definite word. Why does it have to be? The first word has to be a definite word. Why? Because nominal statement is about what? Is about mentioning something that is known to the listener and then given information about it. Right? So for example, if I say to you, the boy died, right? Then you know what boy we're talking about. And then the information I'm giving you about the boy is that he died, right? But the first word has to be something that me and you, we know what it is. We can't be speaking about a random boy. Otherwise, you'll be telling me, you'll be telling me, what boy, right? So that's why in a nominal sentence, the first word has to be definite, meaning known to both the speaker and the listener. If
otherwise it'd be meaningless.
Otherwise, it will be meaningless. Meaningless in the sense that you will be asking question, what boy, what teacher? So that's why the definite article or the article of definiteness has to be added to it, or it has to be a name. You can say that Muhammad died. Then you're not going to ask me who is Muhammad, because Muhammad is Muhammad. We know who's Muhammad, yeah. But if I say to you, a man died, which man? So nominal sentences has to begin with a defined word, a definite word, and a definite word has to be either a word that begins with L, and then or a name. So when you look at when you go into the dictionary, you want to look up for a word al-kitab. You don't put there. You're gonna look for it for book. You're gonna put the word book, and what you will get, you're gonna get kitab. You're not gonna get al-kitab. But if you want to formulate nominal sentences, you have to add what? Alif lam to it for it to say al-kitab or the book. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to give you the hints you need for you to go away and construct your own Arabic sentences using the dictionary. So in the dictionary, you will be putting, for example, the English word book or cat. If you want to speak about a cat, you will put cat, and then you get the Arabic word for it, but then you put at the beginning of it was alif lam for it to make sense, right? Okay, al-kitabu mufidun. You will notice here that the second word is indefinite. It has to be like this, or at least this is the most basic form of a nominal sentence. One word that is definite, and another word, another noun that is indefinite. It has to be like this. So the first word is what we both know to be talking about, and then the second word is news about it. Khabar. It's called khabar. So the first word is called al-mubtada. Al-mubtada. I will write it for you. So this word altogether, this word here, is called al-mubtada. Please feel free to ask me questions. I don't mind stopping at any point. I don't want you to progress without understanding. Al-mubtada means the first noun in a sentence. Al-mubtada, yeah.
Subject.
Huh? Sorry?
Not subject as well.
Yeah, we can call it subject, but we don't want to confuse it with the subject that is in the verbal sentence. So the first noun, the noun that happens to be at the beginning of a sentence, that is called al-mubtada. Loosely speaking, it has to be also instead of rafa. So al-mubtada, a noun at the beginning that is definite. Okay, it has definitiveness to it. It is known. And then the second thing has to be another noun. So this is a noun, and this is the second one is a noun. So what this is a noun. Okay? And this is also a noun. How do I remove this? So the second word is also a noun. But this word here is called al-khabar, which literally means the news. What news are you telling me about the first word? Al-khabaru. Al-khabar. This is also a noun. This is also a noun. What's the difference between the first noun and the second noun? Yeah, exactly. The first one is definite, and the second one is indefinite. Right? It has to be like that. If you put them both definite, what will happen? It will no longer be a meaningful sentence. It will be one word that is being described, but you're still asking me, what about it? If I say to you, the boy died, that's a sentence, right? Meaningful sentence. If I say to you, the big boy, you tell me, what about him? Right? So if I say al-kitabu al-mufidu, it will no longer mean the book is beneficial. It will read the beneficial book. So I'll tell you the beneficial book, and you will be telling me what? What about it? You know? So that's why it has to be, the first one has to be definite, and the second one has to be indefinite for it to be a news. You have news about it. But otherwise, if you make them both definite, then the second word will be like an adjective. You are describing it. You're describing it as being the big boy, for example. And then, but still, you haven't told me anything about him. You just described him as being big. But what about him? What about the big boy? Here. So if I put al, for example, if I put the alif lam that we have here at the beginning, al-kitab. If I put another al in al-mufid, al-kitabu al-mufidu, the beneficial book. What will you tell me? What about it? It doesn't make sense. Right? But if I tell you al-kitabu mufidun, the book was actually beneficial. So that made sense. So the basic structure for a sentence, for an Arabic nominal sentence, is this. That's the basic structure. The first word has to be a definite noun, and the second word has to be an indefinite noun. And how do you make a word definite? For simplicity, you can say one of two things. Either add alif lam at the beginning, alif lam, say al, and then put the noun after it, or basically make that noun a label or a alam, like a name of a person. So when you say, for example, Muhammad is known. We know who Muhammad is, even though it doesn't have alif lam at the beginning. Is defined by nature. We know that Muhammad is the person, that tall person or whatever. Okay? So let's make another sentence, because your homework is to go and make 10 sentences of your own by yourself, inshallah.
The rule is if it's a definitive noun,
it has to either begin with al, or it has to be a name of a person or a thing.
proper noun.
Right? A proper noun, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
So if
it's either a noun,
name, it doesn't need that.
yeah. If it's name, it doesn't need al. Like you speak about Zaydun or Muhammadun. These are names, proper nouns. They don't need alif lam at the beginning. But if it's a name that isn't like a proper noun, then it needs alif lam at the beginning of it. Right? For example, if you want to say the pen, so this is pen, qalam, right? And you can make it definitive by saying the pen, right? Al qalam. Because if you just say pen, no one knows what pen are you talking about. My pen, your pen, the teacher's pen, the student's pen, we don't know. But if we say the pen, then it is probably the pen that we have already spoken about previously, and we already know what pen are we speaking about. So it makes sense for you to say, okay, the pen that me and you we know about, I'm going to tell you news about it. The pen is lost. You know?
Yeah. Question. You know, you said jumla ismiya has to start with a definite noun. Is this always the case? Because, you know, for example, in English, it'd be common to say a book is beneficial. That it's possible that you might say that in a sentence.
Yeah.
You can say that in Arabic as well.
A book.
Yeah, by just saying kitab, kitab. But is it not a book is beneficial? But does it not really make sense?
No,
not really common.
No.
Because in English, you kind of formulate that.
No,
Sentence,
even
might
then,
make sense, but
it makes sense because you're speaking generically.
yeah.
So when you say a book means you're saying all books.
Yeah.
And now it's definite.
Mm.
Because you're speaking about the type, al-jins, jinsul kutub. But all books are beneficial. So that makes sense in English. But in Arabic, if you want to define it, this is one way of doing it. One way of doing it, to add alif lam to it. But there's also the idafa, which we'll study later, inshallah. But I'm teaching you the most basic form of nominal sentences. Right? One noun that is definite, followed by another noun that is indefinite. Do we have other variations? Yes. When will they come? Later on. Right? So let's take another sentence. Right? If you want, let's say, for example, you want to do this sentence in your homework, you want to say, for example, you want to say the boy, right? And then you want to say the word, the what do you call it, the auxiliary words they call them. The boy is, right? And then you would put another adjective, smart, right? The boy is smart. So that in the dictionary, what do you do? What do you do in the dictionary? You just put the boy, and what you'll get for the boy, for the word boy, you'll get the word walad, right? And then you have smart, dhakiyun. If you put in the dictionary, you get dhakiyun, right? So the dhakiyun. This is what you will get in the dictionary. So how to formulate the Arabic sentence and nominal sentence. So you'll bring this one at the beginning. This is what you want to begin with, al-mubtada. And you add what to it? Alif lam. So you bring this one as it is, walad. Right? And then you add alif lam to it. It becomes what? Al-waladu. Al-waladu. Right? And then you add the word, this word, you bring it as well. You say dhakiyun. So do you see how we created a sentence now? So you have two options, either to go through a book, that will just present you with examples, and then you have to go and search each word on your own, or you can create your own sentences, and that will be more engaging for you. If you know how a sentence is made, how the basic nominal sentence is made, let's just keep on creating them by saying, I want to write in English what? I want to write, the girl is beautiful. So write in English, the girl is beautiful, and then go put in the dictionary, girl, and then put in the dictionary, beautiful. So then you have the two words, and then you know about al, and then you put the right order, and then you have al-bintu or al-fatatu, jamilatun. The way you will learn the vocabulary, if you engage with it like this, is much more faster, including conversational language, al-muhadatha. People always want to speak, right? And inshallah, with this, I will conclude with that. If you want to speak, you have two options, either to go through a book that teaches you muhadatha, until when you meet a person, you say, assalamu alaikum, and then the person says, wa alaikum assalam, kayfa anta? And he said, "Ana bi khair." You go through this. Right? So basically, what you're learning how to construct a question, and then how an answer is constructed. Right? But you can do this for yourself, huh? If you know how to construct a question and how to construct a sentence, do you have to go through a book that teaches you conversation, or you can make the conversation in English and then create it yourself? Right? I believe that this second way is more effective. Maybe it's a little bit hard. It does some work. You have to go and do some work, right? But it is more effective for you to learn how. For example, now you will want to ask, how do I make this sentence? For example, let's take this. I'm new with this, so I don't know how to use it properly. Take this sentence here, for example. This word here. You see, al-waladu dhakiyun. Is this a statement or a question? A statement, huh? If I want to turn it into a question, all I have to do is just add this word. Oops. Yeah, hal. It would be halil waladu dhakiyun, and then question mark. So what did we learn first? We learned first how to make a sentence, and then if we want to know how to make a question from that sentence, simple. We know how questions are constructed, and then we just turn a statement into a question, and it's simple, right? So I want you to know that just follow these steps. Don't rush into thinking, I want to have a conversation. This was like you're trying to run before you can walk, right? So just learn how sentences are constructed, and then you will learn also from that how questions are constructed from statements or from sentences. and then that's it. You learn how to question and answer, question and answer. For now, the question for next time with Allah Ta'ala, I want you to learn to go away and create at least 10 examples. Right? These classes, unfortunately, are going to take place once a week, just once a week. So we'll try to progress as much as we can, but a lot of work I would expect from you to do on your own. So if in the next time we meet, you no longer struggle with al-mubtada and al-khabar. The technical words, you've memorized them. The first word is called al-mubtada. The second word is called al-khabar. And you've also mastered that Nahu deals with only al-jumlatul mufida, a meaningful sentence. You know how to say it in Arabic and you know how to say it in English. And then you know that there are two types of nominal sentences. You know that it is jumla ismiya and jumla fi'liya. Two types of sentences, yeah? A nominal sentence and a verbal sentence. What are the Arabic words for it? Al-jumlatul ismiya wal-jumlatul fi'liya. If all of these things are, you've mastered them, and then the next week we don't need to look back. We can progress with new knowledge, and you will catch up with me. You will know where we are, and you will be able to pick up, inshallah. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah.
Is the key in this true example? Should it be the key and because of the you can left at the end?
No, it's ذكي ذكي الولد ذكي الولد ذكي.
I always thought that you couldn't have like an ending like it's a sukun, right? You have to have a tanween as a I always thought that if it's like so you have the noun, which is in the one that's basically action being performed to, or the one doing.
No, there's no action here. There's no action here.
It's a description.
It's a description. Just a description. Yeah, you're right. If we were talking about maf'ul bihi, that would be something. No, you're talking about a verbal sentence.
Maybe a verbal sentence. Yeah, I get it.
So you see, next week I don't want you guys to be confused with this. Yeah. What are we talking about here? Is al-jumlatul ismiya, nominal sentences. Yeah. If you allow things to get muddled up in the beginning, you'll get to a point you will be thinking, oh, Nahu is too hard. Yeah. It's not too hard. It's just you didn't get your head around it.
I've done it a long time ago.
Yeah. Like I said to you, like with any field of knowledge, the first few chapters, all fields of knowledge, the first few chapters, the first few sections is the building blocks at the bottom. If you allow them to be wobbly and not set properly, when you build the second layer, the third layer, very soon everything will collapse and you'll be thinking, my goodness, I can't understand this. So make sure that whatever we learn in each layer, it sets very well in your mind and you remember it and you understand it very well. Like I said, with these classes, you can ask any questions. You can stop me. It's not like a monologue thing. Stop me. If anything is unclear, I will clarify it. Inshallah. طيب. We'll stop here, inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
I write experts.